Travis Hunter is doing crazy things on both sides of the football in Colorado, while I'll be right in the midst of a Heisman race with phenom Ashton Jeanty. So how did we get here? Travis was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, where he grew up until 8th grade when he moved to Sewanee, Georgia, in order to focus on football and keep dominating like he was already doing as a kid in West Palm. Anyways, Travis attended Collins Hill High School, where he played both cornerback and receiver. And as you could probably imagine, he was super good on both sides of the ball, as he put up nearly 1,000 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns, along with 7 interceptions on the other side as only a sophomore. The following year, Travis took his production up quite a few notches, with this time 8 picks and a pretty insane over 1,700 yards and 24 touchdowns receiving, as he earned Max Prep's Georgia Player of the Year honors. Not only just that, but Travis also set, I said it wrong, but Gwinnett County single season records in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, as he led Collins Hill to a 12-3 record, and upon that an appearance in the 7A state title game. By this point, Travis had done enough to get himself on the radar of pretty much every single college program in the country. But he still did his thing as a senior with over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns receiving, along with over 20 tackles, 4 picks, and a forced fumble on the other side of the ball, even after missing 5 games due to a mid-season ankle injury. Not only did Travis do well in the regular season, but when it mattered most he showed up, and in the state title game that year, he had 10 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown, along with a forced fumble on the defensive side to cap off a perfect 15-0 season for Collins Hill's first state championship in school history. Fast forward a bit, and in his final high school football game, Travis went ham with 178 yards and 2 touchdowns as his team almost beat Washington State champs Graham Kapowsin in the Georgia State Championship Bowl series, but sadly lost 40-36. Oh, and by the way, Travis also broke the Georgia State record for career receiving touchdowns with 48, and upon that played in the 2022 Polynesian Bowl, where he earned offensive MVP honors with 5 catches for 54 yards, along with an interception on defense. I mentioned it earlier, but Travis was a very popular recruit throughout his last few years in high school, which I mean makes sense considering how well he played on both sides of the ball and one of the most competitive talent pools in the nation. But even then, he was still one of a kind, and I mean that literally. Travis was considered the #1 recruit by most people, schools, etc. And so he got offers from programs like Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Florida, the list goes on, and yet he committed to Florida State following his first visit back in March 2020. Likely because of how close it was to where he grew up, but even then it was still a surprise. Fast forward a bit, and on December 15, 2021, nearly 2 years after committing to Florida State, Travis flipped his commitment to Jackson State in order to join Deion and the Tigers, which, as you probably are well aware of, shocked the football world once again, as he was the biggest recruit to choose a HBCU in quite some time. Not only is that, but he was the first 5-star to ever commit to HBCU for that matter. And as this guy Dustin Lewis would say, it was probably the most shocking decision in the history of college football recruiting, if that tells you anything about how big this was. Anyways, going into his first year with Jackson State, there was a lot of hype surrounding him, Shadur, Shiloh, and especially Deion to see if they could elevate the Tigers to be one of, if not the best HBCU programs in the country. From the get-go, Travis was just different, as in the spring game he had 2 receiving touchdowns, along with 2 picks, in what was the first HBCU spring game to ever be nationally televised, which you can call the primetime effect. Had Travis went to this team without Deion and his kids, then it may not have gotten so much attention, but the combination of him being the biggest recruit in the nation, alongside all of that, made for a wild season, as the team was able to go 12-0, even with Travis getting injured in the opener, and then missing the next 5 games straight. Either way, Travis showed up when it counted, and still was able to put up nearly 200 yards and 4 touchdowns receiving, along with 20 tackles, 8 pass deflections, and 2 picks on defense. Keep in mind with the defensive stats that a lot of teams would avoid throwing to his side of the field in the first place, so don't get it twisted, he was ballin'. Although Jackson State lost the Cricket Celebration Bowl against North Carolina Central in OT, Deion, Shadur, Travis, and Shiloh had shown enough to get attention of the college football world. And after what was one of the wildest years in HBCU history, it was time for Coach Prime to head elsewhere. And so he went to the heavily overlooked Colorado Buffaloes, who were coming off a ridiculously bad 1-12 season. Travis went along with Coach Prime and the Sanders to good old Boulder, Colorado, in hopes of turning around a program that was seen as one of the worst in FBS. It was a steep task, even with stars like Travis, Shadur, Shiloh, and the recruits that they got over the following offseason. So they didn't do anything insane, but still were able to get the ball rolling. Going into his sophomore year in Colorado, there's a lot of anticipation as to what Travis and the rest of Colorado could do, especially after they beat number 17th ranked TCU in the opener, and then started off 3-0. But in the last of those 3 games against Colorado State, Travis got absolutely clocked. In what was an aggressively illegal hit, Travis got injured and went on to miss the next 3 games, where the team went 1-2. And although he was back the rest of the season and did his thing, it just wasn't enough to help the Buffaloes to any wins as they finished the year 4-8 on 6 straight losses.
God!
Even though the team didn't do amazing, Travis did his thing with over 700 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, along with over 30 tackles, 5 pass deflections, and 3 picks on defense, as he was named a consensus All-American and a recipient of the Paul Hornung Award. Doing all of that after practically missing 3.5 games on a brand new team and against much tougher schools was super impressive, but I'm sure it still bothered Travis and the rest of Colorado that they didn't do as well as they knew they could, and so they had quite a bit of extra motivation going into this year. Following what was an impressive sophomore year at Colorado, Travis went into this season on Heisman watch, especially considering how unique his two-way talents are, and especially if the Buffaloes were able to win a few more games. That in mind, many were curious as to whether or not Colorado would have a repeat of the previous season, and if the team would be able to hang with some of the better schools in the now Big 12, considering that Shedeur and Shiloh were seniors, and Travis is almost certainly declaring for the NFL draft following this season. In the first game of the year, the Buffaloes barely got out alive against the FCS powerhouse in North Dakota State, and although they are a good school, it was a bit concerning considering that they were barely FBS and Colorado was looking to contend. And so them barely winning with Travis putting up an insane 132 and 3 touchdowns receiving made the following week against Nebraska a massive reality check.
Love of God!
Not only did Colorado lose, but they got mollywopped by the Cornhuskers, and Travis's 110 couldn't help dig them out of the hole that they got themselves into from the get-go. Going into the following week against Colorado State, it was very familiar territory for the Buffs, with many wondering if they had what it took to actually win against an FBS school, albeit not a great one, but still FBS, and it turns out they more than did. Travis put up 100 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air as Colorado destroyed Colorado State 28-29, and the team finally got some momentum going into their first Big 12 matchup against Baylor. Not only just that, but Travis was also making waves in the Heisman conversation, albeit with many cautious because of the fact that Colorado was still a bit shaky. So going into Baylor, there was a lot on the line, and let's just say the game lived up to the hype and more.
Sanders gets the feet set toward the end zone for the game.
Colorado barely got out alive as they won in OT 38-31, following a super good play by Travis to secure the win alongside 130 the air, but it was a win nonetheless. And now that Colorado was sitting at 3-1, going into a game against a UCF team that many thought would kill Colorado, there was a lot riding on whether or not they could get it done, especially with UCF being highly favored. And yet somehow Colorado showed up and showed up big as they won 48-21 behind some great play by Travis as he put up nearly 90 yards, a touchdown, and had a pick in this little celebration. Suddenly, the Buffs were sitting at 4-0, coming off back-to-back conference wins, with a contender for the Heisman in Travis and Shedeur, and now they were facing their toughest test of the year in the number 18 ranked K-State Wildcats. In what was a crazy back-and-forth game, it was looking like Colorado had a shot, but then Travis got injured, along with a few other big wideouts, so they eventually got bested by the Wildcats, although not by a whole much, which was really telling of how talented the Colorado roster is. Obviously, a loss is never great, but considering what happened, it was impressive that they were still in it to the end, in a game that they probably could have won. And so going into the following week against Arizona, even Obama couldn't keep them from doing their thing.
Colorado's got a couple good players. You guys have beaten them twice in a row, so don't bet against the Wildcats tomorrow.
Not only was Obama wrong, but he was as wrong as one could be, as even with a not 100% Travis, who missed the second half, they still destroyed the Wildcats 34-7 to get themselves to 5-2. I was literally at the game, and you could just tell that Travis was not in football shape. He was simply playing for the love of the game. So it makes sense that they kept him out of the second. And it paid off big time the following week against Cincinnati, as his over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns helped Colorado take out the Bearcats 34-23 and pop into the top 25 at number 23. And this celebration was pretty dope also. Here we are now, and Colorado is on their second bye, sitting at 6-2 as number 23 in the nation. Their first time being ranked since early last year. And let's just say Travis is playing super well, with over 750 yards and 8 touchdowns receiving, along with 20 tackles and 2 picks on defense, as he was the first player in Big 12 history to win both the offensive and defensive players of the week. Needless to say, Travis is doing incredible, which is why he's still in the mix for the Heisman with the superstar and Ashton Jeanty out there in Boise State, making it for one of the most unique Heisman races in college football history. But nonetheless, Travis has more than proven himself as one of the best players in college football, probably all the time. So Heisman or not, he'll be taken super high off the board and likely have an immediate impact on whatever team gets him. Now, it may be tough for him to keep playing as much as he does on both sides of the ball in the NFL. But hey, with someone like Travis, never really know, especially when he's already done stuff like this.
Into the end zone, contact, what a catch!
Thanks for watching the video, especially you Travis. Subscribe and like for more stuff like this, and comment down below who I should talk about next. But anyway, see you all soon, and peace out.
Make sure to like and subscribe.